evening to one and all. How's everybody doing? Y'all doing all right? Oh my goodness. It is really good to be here tonight just to study. I don't know, I sound louder, don't I? Yeah, it's like right up under my throat. Yeah, right on my throat. That's how you say it in throat, my throat. I'm learning, y'all. I'm learning. Is everybody doing good? All right. Everybody here to study? Okay. Well, I hope so, because we're all here. I'm here to learn. I'm here to study, and I'm here to learn as well. And I hope you're here to learn too. So Galatians chapter 5. Yeah, Galatians chapter 5. How's the study so far? Anybody learning anything? You probably wish you hadn't asked for that lesson. Anybody? Okay. No. I know everybody wished that. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And so I'm glad somebody asked about it, right? Because I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, they stole my suggestion. Yeah, Galatians chapter 5, talking about the making a contrast here between the works of the flesh, works of the spirit, or the fruit of the spirit, and the works of the flesh. So now, how many weeks have we been on this? 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. So in 3 weeks, we probably done learned a lot, right? Okay. So how about we start letting us know, what did you learn? What have you learned so far? Who wants to be the first one? Okay, on this side, we don't have Terrence tonight, so he won't really be. Okay, Brother Willie got it? Okay, all right. That's my cue. Okay, over here, Brother Chris.
What I learned particularly with last week, we spent a lot of time on sorcery and learning about the fact that it's still pretty prevalent in the world, and you even had a lot of biblical examples. Like one you talked about was pharaohs or sorcerers when they was going toe to toe with Moses. Every time he would perform a miracle, they would basically repeat it and stuff. And even though it's something that we shouldn't really take to hand at heart, but can't ignore the fact that it's still present within this world. So talking about some of those spiritual sins. So sorcery was a big one that stuck out to me.
All right. Anybody else? So did anybody at all even take the time to go and look over the book of Exodus? Nobody? And just look at how, look at the works Moses was performing? All right, okay. So we see that, right? Okay, so they reached to that point where, man, we just can't match God anymore. But let us not forget, two forces in the world, good and evil. And we would not know one without the other. Right? It's just the same like light and darkness. How do you know it's dark? It's because you can see the light. How do you know it's light? It's because you can see the darkness, right? So it's like what the Japanese call, is it Japanese that say yin and yang? Yeah. Yin and yang. Okay, yeah. So you know one because the other exists. And so that's what we know, right? So the forces are there. And both forces, they do have works to identify them. So we know what the works of darkness look like, and we know what the works of the spirit looks like, because God tells us what is the difference between them, right? So they do exist. And we know that the spirit is fighting against the flesh is fighting against the spirit. The spirit's controlled by when he talks about the flesh, he's not just only talking about the physical body, but the society, the world in which we live. Because the society in which we live, the world in which we live, would usually try to shape our beliefs and our ideologies. So, anybody else? Got it.
Yeah, we also talked about the fact of we can make anything an idol. Anything that we put before God makes it an idol. And that's what we have to be careful of, that not only the images, but the things that we hold most dear and precious to us, like our children, could be our wives, could be your vehicle. Anything that you put before God can become an idol. And this is the one thing he's wanted to get not to do this.
Absolutely. Sister Betty.
On that note, with idolatry, it shows that And so when we do that, that idolatry steals God's authority. And when we do that, it sees that the flesh is over the spirit. Also, when we looked at the witchcraft, it showed that witchcraft steals God's power. And so that's what we teach, that when we believe in that, then the power of God is less than what we should have. It should be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And remember, we talk about nothing in the world should ever supersede God's glory, God's power, God's awesomeness, right? And because God is so awesome, because he's so powerful, that is why we revere him so much and put him above all others. And if we're going to diminish his power, then we're actually diminishing God. And that's the danger of all of that. So good point. Anybody else? Go ahead, brother.
That's why we have to rely on the Holy Spirit to fight against those things.
Exactly. Anybody else? 4-0. Keeping score. Oh, okay, brother Willie's coming with the mic for you. Sister Sutton. It should be on, right? The green light is on there? Okay, there you go.
Exodus 20, 3, 4, and 5. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me.
All right. Good reference. Anybody else? Oh, Sister CG over here.
You mentioned spiritual counterfeit. So where if you stay in God's word, reading and studying, you'll be able to spot a fake. You'll be able to discern between good and evil. You'll know what man is doing versus what God has been doing the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else? No?
Yeah, Brother Mark, the same thing when we put ourselves before God. We make excuses for it didn't mean that. And I guess I'm thinking in terms, if there's something that I want to do compared to what the Bible says I need to be doing, and we make excuses for why we don't do it, we put in ourselves before the commandments of God.
Right.
You know, and he punished Israel a lot for that. You know, because he laid out the rules and instructions for what he wanted them to do, and every time they did it their way, he punished them. And see, the punishment for them was death.
Right.
And, you know, we're going to die a spiritual death. You know, it may not be today, but we're going to have to answer for that. So we need to be careful of that we don't become our own gods.
Right. I like even in your prayer you had mentioned something about forsaking the assembly. Now, is it possible that a person can miss a worship session? It's possible. I could have been coming here and then have like a mechanical failure on my car, and it would have probably caused me to miss worship, right? I'm just giving you an example. Trust me, I'm not wishing anything bad on myself. But I could miss worship. But now when I make it a conscious decision to now habitually miss worship, you see, now this is what Paul says, it's a practice. So those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of heaven. You see, there's a difference, because some things are beyond your control. But if you make, this is the same thing Paul is actually saying in Romans chapter 7. He is saying that because I'm human, I know that I'm subjected to the frailties that actually attack the human consciousness, the human psyche. I am going to get upset and I may probably lash out at somebody. But if I make it a practice, if I make it a habit, and then if I make excuses for my behavior, that's why I'm saying a lot of times too many people try to lean on the crutch. I'm only human. No, don't lean on that crutch. Don't lean on that crutch. Because if you continue to think that you're only human, you're only going to continue to tell yourself that it is okay for me to sin because I'm human. And go ahead. Is the mic on?
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate and get some clarification on something, right? During a study, I did run across that concept. And one of the things that I was wondering about when it talked about forsaking the assembly, one of the things that come to me was it came from a lack of understanding why some people choose or may choose not to gather. But then when I was reading about it in scripture, I was thinking about like Paul and his situation when he was locked up. And now he wasn't able to gather, but then, or gather with many others. So I was trying to figure out, okay, like when situations like that, let's say we got brothers and sisters that are incarcerated, right? And they would not be able to gather with a specific congregation, or might just be with themselves. Now, this was the thing where I was wondering, when it comes to people like in those situations, how would they benefit or be able to grow spiritually? Because technically, they would be, well, it would be for sake of a gathering, but then I guess, like I was saying, it would go to having to understand the purpose. So when I realized that, I'm like, okay, if a person doesn't understand why people gather, then they won't show up. I hate to be everywhere. I get excited.
It's all fine, because I can make sense out of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, again, there are some things that's beyond your control.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the Bible gives us example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Peter is in prison,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you see that the disciples are praying for Peter.
Mm-hmm.
But Peter is in prison.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that because he's in isolation that he forsake God in isolation. Right. Isolation sometimes, and I'm glad you mentioned, because that's something that I was going to talk about tonight anyway, but closer to the end.
Okay.
But isolation, you could be isolated for two purposes. You could be isolated because God wants you to be isolated so he can work on you.
Right.
Abraham had to leave everybody behind so he could actually go forward and for God to actually use him. When you look at it, Joseph had to be isolated from his brothers, again, to fulfill a purpose that God had for him. David had to be isolated so that God can actually train him so he could actually defeat his enemies. You see how it works now? Jonah had to be isolated so God can reform him so he can actually go on the mission. Peter had to be isolated so he can understand that God's plan is to enlarge the kingdom to now include Gentiles.
Right.
So isolation is good if it fulfills God's purpose.
Right.
But then isolation is also bad if now the devil wants you to be isolated so he now can use you.
Right.
And he can actually go ahead and control you now because now you have no help. And this is the danger that the Bible is actually talking about when it says not forsaking the assembling of yourself.
Right.
Because again, the sheep itself is not an animal that has a defense mechanism. Right. Sheep can't fight. They don't have claws, they don't have fangs, they don't have none of that stuff. That's why sheep are nothing more than just animals to be preyed on. So when sheep are together, now they are under the protection of the shepherd. And so if you gather together, then you are now under the protection of your shepherd. But now when you're away by yourself because you choose to be by yourself, not because you're incarcerated, that's not that's beyond your control. Right. John was in isolation on the island of Patmos. Domitian exiled him to Patmos, where he eventually died. But I'm just saying, so sometimes, even though he was isolated, he still gave us the book of Revelation, right? In his isolation, still let us know all of that stuff. And so isolation, again, is good once it fulfills God's purpose. Go ahead.
Right. Would that be the same thing for evangelists? When they, sometimes, I knew of someone that left, not necessarily left the church, but he separated himself to go evangelize to another Church of Christ. He's not forsaking the assembly, but in a way where he attended, he no longer attends.
No, don't get me wrong. So I don't want us to go off on a tangent.
Okay.
If you leave South Lumberton because you want to go over there to another congregation to work, that's not forsaking the assembly. You're still within the body worshiping.
Right.
You choose to worship someplace else. So no, he's not talking about that. But he's talking about the people who just say, well, I don't see no need in going to Bible study. I get everything I want on Sunday morning. Do you really? Or I don't see no reason to go to worship. Because, I could worship God by myself. But you're the one making a conscious decision. Okay? All right. So, is everybody okay with that? Okay, go ahead.
Well, Brother Morris, I wanted to ask this then. Now, since we do gather on the first day of the week and we like the culture to gather on Wednesday, would it be forsaking the assembly? Because when we read about it in Acts, I want to say it was Acts around 2, might be close to 40, when it's talking about, I know the early people.
They continue daily in the apostles' doctrine.
Yes, absolutely. And I was wondering, because that came up in one of my Bible studies as well, because we know the believers, we going to gather on the first day of the week, but then also, too, like culturally, we do Wednesday, but the Bible, when I was reading about that, I noticed, okay, they were together all the time. And that was one of the things I was looking at, too.
Yeah, so it tells you that they continue daily in the apostles' doctrine. And we got to understand that the first doctrine that the early Christians had was delivered to them by the apostles. Mm-hmm. So that's why we always get the apostles' doctrine.
Right.
Jesus had already gone back to heaven when the church started. Mm-hmm. So the apostles then were the foundation. Mm-hmm. And so the only thing they had to go on was the apostles' doctrine. If they weren't going on the apostles' doctrine, then they would be following the law. But now, since they're free from the law, the only thing they had was what the apostles were teaching.
Right.
And now what the apostles were teaching was not yet fully written. So it was all verbal stuff. Mm-hmm. So in order for you now to preserve this and to continue this, you have to now continue this like on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. And so they were meeting daily so they could encourage one another to, hey, we got to support this and work towards this and help to enlarge the kingdom, because this is what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead.
So if you're going to look in the scripture to find where it says to worship on or gather on Wednesday night for midweek Bible study, you're not going to find it. If you're going to look in the scripture to find out where it says to come back to evening worship, you're not going to find it. Mm. However, that's why I didn't want to tackle that right now.
Okay.
But what happens is every congregation should actually have leaders. And now the leaders set the tone. And one of the things that congregants or members are asked to do is to obey the leaders that are over them. So when the leaders actually say, well, the congregation is going to do this, the church is not a democracy. You don't get to vote. I don't want to. We don't have to. We shouldn't do this. Let's call it this for that, this for that, this for that. No. It should be that you're following, as long as you know that everything is actually done to bring honor and glory to God and it's not self-gratification, then yes, that's what you're called to be, obedient. The disciples didn't tell Jesus, we don't feel like going over there. They followed Jesus to wherever he wanted to go. And so he said, obey those who have rule over you. Don't make their jobs any harder than it is, because they're looking out for your souls. And if the leadership know that you need Bible study, guess what they'll do? Schedule Bible study. Just be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. See, y'all are taking me off of my. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That would fall under the category of good works.
Yeah.
And we are told that we are his workmanship.
Say bring the mic closer so they can.
We are his workmanship to do good work. So that would fall under the category of that.
Right. Yeah. Are we going? Okay, over here. Lord, I wonder if I'm going to get to the lesson tonight. I don't know.
I like
This is the lesson tonight? Okay, I don't know.
You know, you might.
Then next week, y'all going to be, Brother Mons, we've been on this for 4 weeks.
Well,
Go ahead.
well, I mean, it's good to me because, you know, sometimes we walk around, like I said last week, carrying things, and we don't, maybe I better say Jackie, you don't know what's right and what's not right. Like when we were talking about the sorcery, you know, last week we found out that it is real. You know, some of us knew it was real. Some of us just thought it was a puff in the air. So it's the same thing with coming with talking about services, because I know the way I was raised in the church, you know, we have Sunday worship service, of course, Bible class. We have evening class. We have Wednesday night Bible class. Well, yes, that had become a habitual part of my life. But I have traveled to other churches of Christ, and they just have that one service that morning. And when you're used to doing it the way we do it, well, to me it seemed wrong. But that, you know, that's what I was told, you know, that, well, you know, we've had this service, so that's, you know, that's what we can do for today. And I know that that's how some members see it too. But just like what you said, when the brethren set the tone, you know, for what's to be done during our services, because I just wasn't used. I'm not used to that, you know, the one thing, because that just seems like that's the way that we've been trained. Even though, like you said, no, it's not in the scriptures, you know. But I just know Jackie Hill needs more than one service on Sunday, because we don't need to let things become habitual. Serving God is not a habit, because sometimes we get like that. It's Sunday. It's time to put my dress and my heels on and go to church and listen, and then I'm gone until the next service. I've heard all I need is the Sunday service. I've heard that, but I just know that sometimes that we have to learn that worship is not a routine. It's not just a habit. Right. You know, it's supposed to be our lifestyle. Right. Because we have a goal that we're all trying to reach.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh boy. Who else? Who else? Oh boy. Now the hands are going up. Now, everybody, hey, we're gonna beat that worship to a pulp. Yeah. Go ahead. You turn it off again? It died. Okay.
But forsaking the assembly, isn't that a matter of attitude?
Well, it's both. It's both. Because you could be present in body, absent in mind.
But that's still a matter of attitude. And even if you just present in body and absent in mind, you still forsaking the assembly, whether you here or not.
Right. That is why everything has to be done from a pure heart and from a heart of love. So, again, Jesus said that you worship me with your lips, but your hearts are far from me. So the heart has to be there. One of the things that we need to understand is if the heart is not motivated, the body won't react. The body won't react positively. So in order for the body to react positively, then the heart has to be in it. Because like Sister Jackie says, if the heart is not in it, then all you're doing is going through the motions. But when your heart is in it, you understand the deeper meaning behind it, and now you would say like, okay, it's not just me going from 9 to 10 or 10 to 12 or whatever. Now it's me being there and me being fully immersed to experience the fullness of God, right? And so that's what it's all about. Yes, so you're right. We have to have the right attitude. Everything about God is actually about attitude. You had your hand up? Okay. You were just stretching? Give her the mic. She might as well.
I mean, I can relate to everything that you're saying. I kind of grew up here in the church when my mom was coming, but I used to be mad on Wednesday night because I didn't want to be here, even though I had been baptized. But I had to come. I had to bring Mama to Bible study. I wasn't my heart. I wasn't here. I was here present physically, but I was not trying to walk as a Christian and do the things that are right. I was young, dumb, and stupid, But I had to make sure that I got here, so I can relate to what's being said. However, I can say now I try to be here now all the time. I love y'all. I feel like I've grown so much as a Christian, and I enjoy being with my brothers and sisters. So I'm trying to be here every time the doors are open. So them ladies' days on Saturday morning.
Right. And again, a good way to look at it now, our gathering together is just like nutrients that every plant needs, or it's just like nutrient that every body needs, because everybody got to get food. And so this is the nutrient that you actually get. And the more nutrients you get determines your health. It determines how strong you grow, how much you grow. And now when you don't really have any nutrients, you're just going to be a weak plant. So now when the wind blows, you're easily swayed by every wind of doctrine. And not only that, but if the wind blows too hard, it blows you over. You see that? So now you actually need the nutrients so that you can actually grow. And that's the beauty of Bible study, because you're digging deep, you're going deeper into the Word so that you can actually grow. When you come on Sunday and you're just hearing a sermon delivered, pretty much you're just hearing a summary of stuff. And so the lesson that's really given to you is not the same as when you actually attend Bible study. All right? And so that's where a lot of people tend to make their mistakes. Okay, so can we go back to Galatians chapter 5? Or we still got another one? Hey, go ahead. We ain't going to get to Galatians 5 at all.
I'm sorry. I was
ahead.
just wanting to add to just something that Sister Peggy was saying. I'm sure you weren't the only one young and coming because we know our parents want us here. But the thing about it is, that's what our parents were supposed to do in the Word, because they are planting that seed in us, and they're working that growth in us. Because look where you are now. Look where we are now. I'm not saying everybody is, but it's just something about once that seed is planted, just like when I went off and went to the Army, that seed is planted. I'm going to find a church wherever I go, because God always worked it out for me. Even in training, it was a family from the Church of Christ coming to pick me up. I stayed with them all day, and they took me back in the evening. That's one thing I know about God, and not trying to sound like I've always stayed on track, but I thank God for Him keeping me. If you seek Him, He's going to be there for you.
Right.
He's going to be there for you. So I'm just saying, even though a lot of us, we had to come to service when we didn't want to come to service, or we weren't serious, that that seed was being planted, so that it's still in us to this very day. So that I just know that people, you just don't forget it, even if you don't want to do right. It's just something about it. You ain't gonna forget it, because I know when I ain't want to do right, I don't forget it.
All right. All right. Okay. Last one there, because we ain't gonna get to Galatians 5. We just gonna be here. Go ahead. Quick. Make it quick. Oh Lord, that's it.
Look, when they're talking about like when you're raised up and you were drugged to church and this and that, even when I was in the Baptist church, the same thing. But at some point, you were coming for them. But it's only real when you start coming for yourself, your own soul's sake. That's the big difference. And when it's about your soul, if you're sincere about your soul, like I am about mine, then whatever I can get, all I can get, to keep plugged up like we do our cell phones, I got to keep my soul charged up. That's the only way it's going to survive.
All right.
And that's what Sister Betty said to me. She said, see what you've been missing?
Oh. All right. Galatians 5. Galatians 5. All right. Ooh. We got 2 minutes. 2 minutes. We're going to look at verse 20. because in verse 20, we actually talk about those spiritual sins, idolatry and sorcery. But then there's another list that he actually, it's not another list, it's a continuation. But now we're actually going to look at this because the next eight sins that he outlined, these are all like relational type sins, right? They're relational type sins. Not saying that the rest of them are also relational, the other two, but we look at those differently, but relational sins. So look at what he says there. Who wants to read that? He said idolatry, sorcery, what? We look at the relational sins. Selfish ambition, what? Dissension. Y'all see all of that? Division. And then he says another one there in 21 was envy. And so when you look at this, we're going to look at the drunkenness and wild parties and other sins later. But we're going to look at the relational ones. So you see those, he talked about these things. Now, what do you think the dangers of these relational sins are? Underline the word again, relational. Relational. So when you hear relational, you think of what? Relationships, right? Relationships. So these sins target relationships. And since they target relationships, what do you think it has the potential to do? Destroy relationships. And now when you say that they're designed to destroy relationships, what is the church built on? Relationships. So now you see, now the church is built on relationships, and now Paul is actually saying, well, you know, we have these sins that we talked about over here, these sexual sins, sexual immorality and all of that. We have these spiritual sins that we talk about that actually replaces God's authority and try to subjugate his power to witchcraft. And now we're actually looking at how we deal with each other, with one another, relationally, right? And so let's look at these. Let's look at these. Let's look at these. Let's look at these. He said hostility. If you're looking at King James or New King James, it's going to tell you like it's hatred, right? Hatred. When you hear hatred, what is it that you think about? What is hatred really? Huh? You said candidate? Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel. Okay, that's a good example. So what is it really? Yeah, you give me an example, but what is the hatred? What is hatred? So go ahead, sister. She had it. Give her the mic. It's an intense dislike. An intense dislike. Not just that you dislike something, but it's intense. And the intensity is such that a lot of times you want to avoid. Not only do you want to avoid, but you may even want to reject. Sometimes not only that, but you can even go further because of the hatred. I'm not only trying to avoid you, I'm not only trying to reject you, but I could also be trying to eliminate you. That's what hatred is. So you gave about Cain and Abel. Cain said, like, look, I see my brother as an obstacle. And so I hate him because of that. And his obstacle was that him being an obstacle was because his sacrifice was acceptable and mine wasn't. His sacrifice was pleasing to God and mine wasn't. And so I could hate him for that. You see, a lot of times, even today, we hate people usually because of nothing that they've done to us. But yeah, we hate them because of what's going on in their lives. See, we hate them because of what's going on in their lives. They're successful while I'm not successful. I hate that. They're moving ahead and I'm not moving ahead. I hate that. People seem to look at them more favorably than they do to me, and I hate that. And so you just develop this strong dislike, this intense dislike for someone, and sometimes, like I said, it's not because they've done you anything, right? So that ill will that you have towards them now, you don't want to see them prosper. The only thing you want to see, the people you hate, your enemies, you only want to see them fail. Who in here ever pray for their enemies? I mean, before you understand that the Word of God says to pray for your enemies. But who in here ever pray for their enemy? Mm-hmm. But even though this is something that Paul is saying is sinful and should not exist among believers, notice what Paul never said. He never said that the world shouldn't hate. Because Jesus said the world is going to hate you. Why? Because it hates me. So as believers, we should expect the hate to come from the outside and not from the inside. Because whenever it comes from the inside, it has the potential now to destroy what God is creating. And what God is creating is unity, right? I'm not trying to, be like Queen Latifah here. But it's unity. And how can we then keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace if we are hostile towards one another? There won't be any peace, and there won't be any unity. So now you see what Paul is actually talking about? Hatred, it has the potential to destroy the work. Sister Betty used that. We're all created for love and good works. And the works that we're here to do, no. Because if I hate you and you hate me, we can't work together as a team. Can't work together as a team. And you would be surprised to know that even though Paul talked about this almost 2,000 years ago, hatred still exists today in the churches. Isn't that a shame? Yeah. So when you look at it, to turn away from. You hate something so much you turn away from. The Bible lets us know that God hates sin so much that he turns his face away from sin. Jesus bore the sins of the world, the sins of humanity on the cross, and God turned away from him. Anybody remember? And then Jesus, in Aramaic, he said, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which is to say, my God, why have you turned your face away from me? So wherever sin is, God says, it's not because my hand is too short that I can't save you. It's not because my ears are full of wax that I can't hear what you're saying. But because you got sin, I can't deal with you. I can't deal with you. So God hates sin. And we too should hate sin, not one another. So a lot of times, somebody may do something that is sinful, and rather than hate the sin that the person commit, and then try to encourage that person to walk in the light, we end up hating the person along with it. We overlook the sin and hate the person. How many times he gonna come and ask for forgiveness? It's like every Sunday he coming in and he want to repent of something. I don't like that. Man, you should be happy that the person has the courage to come forward and acknowledge sin in their life. And you should be encouraging them. And as a matter of fact, they got the courage. What does that say about us? Because the Bible said that we've all sin and fallen short of the glory of God. So, yeah. What about you? Anybody got anything to add on hatred? Okay. One here on hatred. Can I get a 5? Can I get a 10? Yeah, one hatred. Go on now. Mm-hmm.
When you're, when we're talking about people that, like you say, they got the courage to keep standing up because they're trying to get themselves together in the Lord. And sometimes people may have thoughts, but sometimes I think those are things that a lot of us have to grow to. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm just saying.
You're right.
I know that there's things I've had to grow to because sometimes you're just looking at it what it is. Mm-hmm. You're not understanding from the scriptures and stuff. Just like what you're saying, why we need Bible study. Mm-hmm. This is something we need to learn to understand, mm-hmm. Whether you like it or not. This person is trying to get right. If they stand up all 30 times, mm-hmm. all through the month, but sometimes I think that's something we have to grow to learn to understand. Sometimes mm-hmm. we might have to go through it our own self to understand it. But I'm wanting to get to the hatred part because I want to make sure. The hatred part? Yeah, I want to make sure. I'm not saying I don't feel like I hate nobody.
No.
but I have to watch the way I say things. My mother, when my mother was living, I come to find out that after my mother passed, that there were people, they had relationship with her. Evidently, they didn't have relationship with me. So now that she's gone, they're gone. Okay, well, I mean, I'm good, but it's kind of weird. Because I'm like, well, God, you liked my mama, but you didn't like me? But I was talking to my sister-in-law, and she said, Jackie, the same thing happened to me when I lost my parents. She said, evidently, I was just there. She said they didn't have relationship with me. They just had relationship with my parents. So I'm kind of led to believe, well, what is that? What does that mean? But, you know, I haven't questioned anybody because really I'm not worried about it because I'm not Helen Johnson. I'm going to be honest. My mother had a love and tolerance that I don't know if I'll ever have it. But I'm sure that's something she had to grow to have because sometimes I feel like she could love and tolerate people that I had to pray about. Lord help me.
Right.
You know, so, but I noticed that since she's been gone, and I didn't dwell on it. I just said it is what it is. And when my sister-in-law told me about what happened to her, I just kind of took that as a confirmation, and I just went on with it. So, you know, I guess in my mind I'm thinking, well, I hope that's nobody hating me. And I don't, you know, because sometimes things can be with you for a while, and it can just settle. And do you really know what it is? Am I speaking to you? Am I making a way to contact with you, or I'm just leaving it be? Am I doing what a Christian should be doing? So I know I threw all that out there, but I don't know where I stand with that. I've just let it be what it is.
Yeah, you threw it all out there. I'm catching it very quick. Let's go ahead and I need my catcher's mitt, and then okay, Chris, you got something.
Yes, and I'm actually kind of glad that since Jackie brought that up, but I'll get to it later. The one thing we are strictly taught to hate is sin, because I know it's like with people that we'll find a way to kind of like, I think how my parents taught me, they would say, hate the sin, but not the sinner. So like, you know, you can have hostility for people that may do you wrong or things you might dislike about them. But my mom was always telling me, say, you can hate what they're doing, but try not to hate the person. And that was always kind of hard because it was kind of hard to separate the two because you're seeing what they see right there. And you say, this is the person, this is the thing where he said, no, focus on what they're doing and not who they are, and to try to see the best in them. Right. And I'm glad that she taught me that younger because especially as I got older, kind of elaborate to Sister Jackie's point, you know, obviously I know what's going on with my family and stuff like that. And to get that rejection back here, it was hard for me not to feel hate towards my family. Because again, it's hard to separate because, you know, I got this love I'm trying to establish and it wasn't returned back. And to me, I had to understand like where it was coming from and to try to say, okay, even though this is maybe how they see me at this time and currently still, I've tried to separate how I felt and say, even though they may have this in their heart now, I can't let that sit with me because that's going to poison my soul. And instead, I learned to forgive and let go of it. And like she said, it is what it is. And actually legit pray for the best for them and still even claim them, even if they don't. Like, even though I'm maybe on the side, I still carry it with them. I don't let it fester in my heart because, as my mom said, I've learned to hate the sin and not the sinner. So it was something that took practice and still is because I also have moments where I can't separate between the two, and it's just a human, and it's something I have to work on too because, again, like she said about her mom, my mom was a saint like that because I said I can't think like that at the time, but hopefully I would get there from most stances. But especially with people that you're close to, it's really hard to separate between that because you would think there'd be the one person on your side. So with the hate and hostility there, it's something that, and I'm really glad that we're talking about it here because when you really hate what they're doing but truly want to care for that person, you will look past and really look at their best interests at heart and not try to hold it against them.
All right. Okay, all good comments. And just like, as long as we don't, you know, forget where this is all coming from, you know, the origin of all of this, these are works of the flesh. And because they're on, you know, the only way to combat the works of the flesh, which we'll get to when we get there, is the fruit of the Spirit. Okay, and then you will see that the character traits that the fruit of the Spirit provides, grows in us. We'll see that it fights each and every one of those. It fights each and every one of those. So go ahead, sister.
Well, I just keep coming back to when things happen to us in our lives, it's for our good. The Lord is working His plan. And so sometimes people are in your lives for reasons, or sometimes they in your life for seasons. So they not meant to be there forever. And the relationship that you have, yeah, they may have had a different relationship with your mama, but this may just be something that you need to understand, that was just a reason, and that reason is over. That time is over, and now I need to move on to do something else. Because I do believe the Lord He's teaching us lessons as we go. And lessons that we don't get, we'll encounter them over and over and over again until we get it. So reasons and seasons.
Yeah. That's deep, right? That's deep. Yeah, she's like an Olympic diver. She goes deep. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think in terms of what they all said, that brings me back to David. And not David, I'm talking about Joseph.
Joseph.
You know,
You could have used both of them.
what they meant for evil, God meant it for good. And that goes back to your reasons and the seasons. You know, because a lot of challenges that I have on that same aspect, Sylvia always saying, why you do this or why you do that? And I think I mentioned it to you one time because it helps me to grow. It helps me to learn to have tolerance. It helps me to learn to have patience.
Yeah.
And I do it because I said, okay, this is going to make a better individual out of me,
right.
regardless of what their intent is.
Right.
It's better for me.
Yeah, we're just going to talk to Sister Sylvia. We're going to have a conversation about it. All right, so the next sin that Paul addresses is discord. Discord. You see it up there, it says like quarreling and stuff like that, but discord. What is discord? See, a lot of times we're reading those things, but we're not really. What is discord? Okay, so it's disagreement. Is disagreement true? But not just any disagreement. See, discord is actually disagreement that creates a lack of harmony in families. In families. So that's really like the biblical definition of that, right? So disagreements that actually disrupt the harmony in families. The church is a family. So now you see, Paul is actually saying, he's not just saying that you can't be upset or anything, because the Bible even tells us to be angry and don't commit the sin. So, you know, Jesus said that if your brother, family, see that? If you realize that there is something between you and your brother, then you have an obligation to make it up, to make it right. Don't do it so that you actually have the breakup. But you have to make sure. Peter said, like, well, you're telling me now if my brother offends me 7 times, you know, I got to forgive him 7 times. You know, if my brother offend me 70 times, I'm going to have to, you know, forgive him 70 times or what? How many times, Jesus? You want me to forgive him 100 times? But Jesus' answer is like pretty much every time that he offends you. 70 times 7 is a high number, 490, right? But every time he offends you, you need to make sure that rather than creating discord, you're striving to create unity. You're striving to create peace. As much as you can, and we study that in Romans. Paul tells us that in Romans chapter 15, right? As much as we can, we got to live in peace with everybody, right? Live in peace with everybody. Now, so that's another sin that Paul says. I'm going to look at another one before we get out of here. You took a lot of my time, so I'm going to take your time. I better not say that because I know I'm riding with somebody. So I gotta be careful. I don't, I have to get strong legs, strong calf muscles walking back to Fayetteville. Anybody going my way? Okay, go. Paul now says jealousy. And this is an often misunderstood word. And we don't really use jealousy from its true meaning in the Bible. So we use jealousy a lot of time based on what we perceive jealousy to be. But what is jealousy really? What is it?
I just knew it.
So who's got it? Who wants to answer it? Okay. Who got it? The thoughts and fears that you have, right? Well, okay. What does the Oxford definition say? Go ahead.
Dictionary says a feeling or showing envy of someone or their achievements and advantages.
That's jealousy?
Yes.
That's really envy. That's really envy. So jealousy, biblically, jealousy is the thoughts and feelings that you have, the fears and the suspicion and the insecurity that you have about losing a valued relationship. Why do you think that husband or that man, that spouse, is so jealous about his significant other talking to someone else? Because he fears he may lose. That's the jealousy. So the same thing when God says, I'm a jealous God. I don't want you talking or serving other gods, because that could actually lead to you potentially breaking up the relationship that I have with you. And I really don't want to lose you because I have an intense love for you. And by you now following other gods, makes me jealous because I really don't want to lose you. So jealousy is really the fear that we have, those thoughts, the fears, the insecurity that we have about losing someone that we value. See, that's what I'm saying. A lot of times we interchange envy and jealousy when envy is really that. Envy is really that strong desire that you have, the dislike you have for something else that's not yours, because you think that that thing gives a perceived, it could be perceived or it could be real advantage. He got more money than me, so he might be better than me. And the only way I can make it even is perhaps maybe to steal some of his money.
Okay.
You see how it is now? Yeah. So you have a desire for someone else's stuff because you think that the thing they have give them an advantage over you. I needed a car. He had a car, so I stole his car. By him having the car, he has an advantage over me. That's again his envy. But we'll talk about it more when we get there. Go ahead. We're going to get into all of that, but I'm saying it begins with jealousy. It begins with the envy. So if you look at it, all of these things lead to something else. For example, I'm going to show you. We just talked about, the second thing we talked about was discord, right? And we talk about how discord is disagreement that you have, right? And then it also talk about dissensions. Is dissensions disagreement? Yes, they are. But again, you see, dissensions actually lead to discord. So now I can actually dissent or disagree with everything you're saying. And because I disagree with everything that you're saying, now it could actually mess up the relationship that we had, the harmony that we have. You see how it is? So it's like one sin. I want you to go back to Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Back then, the people thought that only adultery was the sin. But now Jesus came and broke it down. No, adultery is a sin, but there's another component to adultery. Lust that you never looked at. You didn't look at it as like, this is a sin. So Paul is saying, even though you have the breakups, the divisions and stuff like that, there were other things that caused the division, other things that led up to the division. I couldn't agree with nothing that Brother Sion said. You see what I'm saying? Everything that he said, I object. I have something against it. It's now a dissension. Everything, I'm dissenting everything he says. Now this dissension could now cause us to argue. And the argument can now lead to discord. It now affects the relationship that we have. Now this affecting of the relationship can now cause us to hate one another. And now that we start hating one another, we think that the best thing for us to do now is to separate from one another. Now you see 4 sins right there that I just talked about that Paul addressed right there in that.
Oh yeah, pride and ego right there.
See that? Comes from one thing. And Paul is saying that the driving force behind all of this is the ego. The flesh is the driving force behind all of this. Because the ego never wants to be wrong. The ego must always be right. And so one of the things that the ego knows how to do is to always, what do we say, fight or flight? No, the ego knows how to fight. And the ego is going to make sure that it wins. So even if I have to destroy you at every cost, I'm going to do that. And when I try to destroy you at every cost, that's what's called selfish ambition. So again, now you see how Paul is actually just showing one sin leads to another. And what it is that if one sin can continue to lead to another, it's showing that that individual does not have any self-control because the self is uncontrollable. And the only way now that the self can actually be restrained or controlled is if you actually crucify or put to death the flesh. When Paul says to mortify your members which are on the earth, with these, that's exactly what he's talking about. And when he says to mortify your members, mortify is a really, it's a really powerful word that means, look, if you got to cut it up, morticians, anybody remember? Mortician? If I got to cut it up, cut that body up. And that's what Paul is saying. Destroy that. Because as long as that is alive, it's going to keep fighting with the spirit. So you can't try to invoke or you can't try to invite the Holy Spirit into your life if you're still allowing the flesh to occupy a room, because they cannot be roommates. Everybody all right? I'm sorry. I'm going to get that and then we're going to get it. So this is your time now. The longer you stay, the more comments you got, that's all on you. I've tried to reclaim some of my minutes, but we're going to control with that later. Yeah.
Couldn't selfish ambition also mean that I didn't get mad at what was said? I got mad because of who it was that said it. Selfish ambition. Could that fall under that?
No, because selfish ambition really is you pursuing things to satisfy. Remember like how the Bible tells you, all that's in the world is the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, and the pride of life. And they're not of God, right? So when I'm chasing fame, when I'm chasing status, when I'm chasing riches, I could care less about, I'm chasing those, but how am I going to get those? You see, I don't care who I have to walk over, who I have to step on in order to get those things. And that's what selfish ambition is all about. It's about looking, we say it a lot. Sometimes we say, because I got to look out for number one. And you see, a lot of times we say things and we say them so callously. We say them so carelessly. And we think we're saying all the right things. And sometimes we don't realize that we are really saying all the wrong things. Because the flesh is still alive in us. Is everybody all right? Oh my goodness. Y'all, please grant me and my family safe passage out of here I try to leave and y'all are still having comments. So, yeah. I want to say thank each and every one of you for your presence here this evening. Let us just try to encourage our fellow brothers and sisters to, be a part of Bible study. Thank you for each and every one of your comments. I know that your comments, they opened up doors so that other people could actually add their comments and discuss the topic. And that's what it's all about. So sometimes I know I don't want you to just sit there just to listen to what I got to say, but bring your inputs, because your inputs can help each and every one to grow a little bit better and to grow more than where they are. So again, thank each and every one of you for your time, for your attention.